On this episode of In the Gun, the prophecy has been fulfilled and Rick Trickett is returning to Morgantown. You know, we've got some thoughts on that. Also, the first Gunny Awards as we kind of put a bow on the 2025 Mountaineer football season. All that and more on this edition of ITG.
Caution, this podcast contains bad jokes, optimism, and a healthy disdain for Pat Narduzzi. Watching it may increase your actual knowledge of actual football.
ITG.
All the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
There's Owen Schmitt in the building.
Like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Towards the end, he in there, Jed Drenning.
I'm not much of an athlete.
The thing that's non-negotiable is playing hard and playing tough.
And Wesley, Valen, Uhler. You are in the gun.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 315 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wes Uhler, as always, flanked by the best teammates in the business, and we've got the full gambit today. We got the runaway barbecue and sharp-dressed beer truck, Big Owen Schmitt. Of course, the signal caller, Jed Drenning, and the co-host, the producer, Mr. Do-It-All himself, Schuyler Callihan. And if you are watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. We don't say that enough, but like and subscribe, okay? Do us that favor in this new year. Happy New Year. And if you are watching, yes, we are all wearing our Johnston equipment hoodies here. We laughed. We hopped on. It was like one by one, like a domino effect as we all jumped on this Zoom to do the show tonight. And Jed and I got the Johnston equipment hoodie and we're laughing. And then 60 seconds later, Schuyler pops in and he's got the hoodie on and we're all in stitches. And then Owen's like, all right, forget this. I'm not going to go get left out. And he reaches into his closet and throws his on and we're all, cackling.
By the way.
Was not planned. Swear, Scouts Honor, Bill Stewart, It was not planned. We're all cackling like a bunch of middle schoolers at the lunch table as we all throw on our Johnston equipment hoodies here.
We just got them.
Right. Yes, they were Christmas gifts from the fine folks at Johnston Equipment. Make sure you're visiting them. Route 33, Weston and Buchanan, also online. That's Johnston with a T, JohnstonEQ.com. This is an awesome hoodie, by the way, fellas. It's like Carhartt.
I love the loose fit to it.
It's soft and rugged. It's kind of like Big Owen Schmitt. It's rugged and durable on the outside, nice and cuddly and soft on the inside, right, Big O?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So a big thanks to Emily Bryce, all the good people at Johnston Equipment, not just for the Christmas presents, but also for just being a part of this here program. Big thank you to Toothman Ford, JR, everybody there at Team Toothman. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. A big shout out to our guy Rick Lewis and Fortis. They've been part of this since just about day one for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. And our friends that hopped on here in 2025, and we had a lot of fun and some good giveaways with them. Of course, the good people at the Book Exchange. Get all your Mountaineer gear and WVU apparel at the Book Exchange, locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. 2 locations, downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Patterson Drive. You can also always shop online at bookexchangewv.com. And when you do, either online or in person, make sure you're using our promo code INTHEGUN20 for 20% off on your friends here at your new favorite WVU football podcast. And gentlemen, it is a new year, 2025, about in the books here, 2026 upon us. And with that, we, of course, have to wish a happy 90th birthday to WVU legendary head coach Don Nehlen, who January 1st, when the year is new, it's another year young for Coach Nehlen, so he will be 90 on New Year's. Just incredible stuff. Jed was talking about, and I'm sure some people saw the social media content of how there was a fun celebration for him not too long ago. We all love how involved he still is with the program, and his presence means a ton. He's always got a smile on his face. He's always, doesn't matter who the coaching staff, players, any of that stuff are, he's always friendly. He's always there to offer words of encouragement and just kind of be an uplifting presence at practice and training camp and games and reunions and all those type of things. So happy 90th birthday to Coach Nehlen, who hits the big 9-0 on January 1st. And from one coach to another, from one legend to another, I want to talk to you first on this one, Big O. But Rick Trickett is back in Morgantown officially. He's not quite 90 years old, but he's got 52 years of coaching experience here, there, and everywhere. Oh, and I made that joke kind of in our intro about the prophecy has been fulfilled because you had a funny tweet about that with the return of Rick Trickett that gained some traction. But this is a guy who, is pretty synonymous with Rich Rod, was obviously is one of the most respected offensive line coaches in the country, was with the program when you were with the program. And it's awesome. It's one of those things that warms Mountaineer hearts everywhere to have another Trickett, certainly, but Rick Trickett back officially involved with the program.
Yeah, can't say how excited I am personally. I just, this is the yin and the yang with Rich, in my opinion. I did put out that tweet. The prophecy has begun. Obviously, there's a little bit of pun in there, but all good fun. I mean, I truly believe Jed put up some numbers too, as well, with their coaching experience together. It's a stout pedigree of rush game. I know some of the former linemen know as well. Hey, it's playtime's over, kids. It's time to get to work, and it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. It's what I sent to Travis. He is the hard edge, and I'm just looking forward to that. Nothing against Coach B. I thought he did the best he could with the situation that he was given this year. I just, it's hard for me not to be excited that old Dick Trickett's in town. All right.
Completely agree. I think back, Coach Trickett, we've said this before on the show, has coached for 50 plus years. Wes, you hit on it, 52, dating himself all the way back to the 1970s at WVU, even before that. But he was coaching with Coach Signetti Sr. That's how long he's been at this, right? But for all those years, he's been an assistant except for one. He was a head coach one season and one season only, and that was in 1999 at Glenville State. And I guess you could kind of serve. I served as his OC, but it's just an interesting dynamic to work on a Rick Trickett staff. And it's something that I will never forget. From a technical standpoint, first of all, we all know the character. He's larger than life. There's only one person like Rick Trickett, and that's Rick Trickett. And when he was made, they broke and threw away the mold. All the adages hold true with Coach Trickett. There isn't another Rick Trickett. But from a technical standpoint, there's nothing more entertaining or insightful than to sit in an offensive line meeting when he's talking to his guys. Just what you soak up. Like I would try and kind of sneak out of our meetings just to get over to his meeting for a few minutes with the O-line just so I could hear him. And I just remember soaking so much up each time I did that. And then, after it was on Sundays, we would be breaking down tape, and we would be in the field house. And I remember it was me and Freddie Kitchens, who coached our running backs, and there's Coach Trickett, and he always had that cigar. And we're sitting there breaking down 9-10 hours of tape. He's IDing every front, we're IDing every coverage, and he's just blowing that cigar smoke for 9 or 10 hours, filling up that entire field house. But he was, and this is really all you need to know about Rick Trickett. When Nick Saban left Michigan State and got the LSU job following the 99 season, Nick took over for the 2000 season with the Tigers. The very first phone call he made was to Rick Trickett. That was the first guy he hired on that staff. That's the reason Rick Trickett was only a head coach for 1 year. I remember the team meeting when he had to tell the team he was leaving and why. And he had to do what was right for his family. It was emotional. It was emotional with Coach Trickett telling the team at Glenville State. He was almost apologizing for taking the LSU job. Like, dude, what are you doing? We understand. Everybody understands. Everybody gets it. But he was the first phone call that Nick Saban made. You will not find a guy, obviously, with more intensity. but I don't know if people talk about the technical side of what he brings to the table nearly enough. And the thing about technique, and this is what Trick always talks about, he's like, look, schemes come and go. There's old school, there's new school, things cycle by, cycle in, cycle out. But you know what doesn't come and go? Proper technique. Whatever scheme you're hoping to run, whatever scheme you're wanting to run. I don't care if you're new age and you think you're reinventing the wheel, or if you're old school and you love to plod and run the football. Whatever you're trying to do, you need sound and proper fundamentals and technique to do it, and that is what separates Rick Trickett from the others. Yes, his intensity, but without the technique, the intensity is just kind of a hollow dog barking, right? And that's not it. He puts all that together and coaches technique to the point that you can almost tell a Rick Trickett offensive line when it steps off the bus. They might step off the bus differently than somebody else's offensive line. But certainly when you watch them on tape and the way they go about their business, it's masterful to sit in a meeting and listen to him and talk about, all right, we're going to ID and target that right knee. And when that right knee vanishes, that's your trigger inside to climb to the second level. We're going to go outside this hip. Okay, if they're an even front, let me tell you what my five guys are doing then. If they're an odd front, let me tell you what my five guys are doing then. And here's the running back's responsibility. They got to make my right tackle right. And he just has been doing this fundamentally, the technique side of it, for so long and so well that he is going to make you the best version of what you can be, even if you refuse to do it. If you stick around and take part, you're going to end up as the best version of what you could possibly be because of Rick Trickett. I mean, Trick's the kind of guy that he gets so upset at poor technique, he'll watch tape and get pissed at the other team when they use poor technique. When he's watching the opponent, he'll get upset about the opponent's technique. What are they doing here? That guy's dragging his foot. He should be solid stepping. He should. He's one of a kind. This was something that was, made official in recent days. Obviously, conversations take place because everybody knows everybody in this industry. But the fact that it landed where it ultimately and finally did, I think is a very positive sign for West Virginia. And Owen, as you said, we have some B-roll that Schuyler's going to be running. He probably already has. As we're talking about this, that's kind of some of the graphics and stats and numbers. But for those listening and not watching, I'll share with you just a couple of the things that Coach Rod and Rick Trickett have accomplished when they get together. When they've been on staff together with Rich as the head coach and Trickett as the O-line coach, 9 seasons together, 111 games together. On average during those 9 seasons, 8.6 wins per season. So it works. The bottom line is what they do helps win football games. Total rush attempts over 5,300 in those 9 seasons. That averages out to 48 a game. Total rushing yards, almost 28,000 in those 9 seasons. That averages out to 252 a game. Total rushing touchdowns, 304. That averages out to almost 3 a game. When you look back to the yards per carry during his 6 years at West Virginia together, 3 years at Jack State together, guys, you're talking about 181, 284. Some of these are over 200 yards. 2006 with you guys, Owen, 303 yards. That was, of course, Trick's last year before he moved on to Florida State with Jimbo, where they ultimately won the national championship. At Jack State, 251 a game, 237 a game, 267 a game. But over the arc of 9 seasons and 111 games, guess what their yards per carry is in the run game? 5.3. That's the good, the bad, and everything thrown into a blender and mixed. And that's what you get. So you're going to get production. You are going to get a hard edge without question. It takes that hard edge. It's hard edge squared. If there's a position coach that from an intensity standpoint is the counterpoint to what Coach Rod is as a head coach, it's Rick Trickett. It's Rick Trickett. So, he's right up there with the Alex Gibbs. I mean, we know the names. When you think of some of the great offensive line coaches in the history of the game, Rick Trickett is certainly among them. And the fact that he at 78 is still going as strong as he was when he's 38 or 48 or 58, full of piss and vinegar, that there's no doubt about it. Again, when it was finally made official and we were on the verge of everybody finding out and it going national with the story, I shot him a text and he's going to be up here by the end of the year. He's going to be back in Morgantown. So let's get this thing going. And it's fun. Yes, he's a guy who believes that he can take a dead piece of wood and turn it into an all-conference player, and I'm not so sure that he can't. But at the same time, One of the missions that we will have, Wes, in the portal is finding some talent to go with the returners that we do have and seeing what in fact will be his mission to whip into shape, because whatever he's handed, he's going to whip them into shape. But when you're starting with some guys like Kevin Brown and some other guys that we're going to land in the portal, you're going to have some guys with some potential that he's not going to have to take a dead piece of wood and turn water into wine, right?
The thing I like about this too is not only is he a technician, but like you said, Jed, he's still intense as all hell. And I've had so many people ask me this in the last 24 hours or so: is this a short term hire? Is this only going to be a year or two thing? I'm like, so what? Like that's what college football is right now. You're building the best team year in and year out with your staff and your players. There's no guarantee that anybody's going to be here beyond a season. You're worried about getting better right now. By hiring Rick Trickett, that's exactly what West Virginia did.
Amen. Amen to that. And Schuyler, you know what? Stay there. Don't go anywhere, because you're right. It is such a year-to-year thing now, and that really pisses a lot of us off, from West Virginia to West Hollywood, from Ann Arbor all the way down to Austin, Texas, as I do my best Tony Caridi there to try and think of north and south and east and west points across this country. The transfer portal, the year-to-year craziness that drives everybody nuts and has them pulling their hair out. Now we have guys going from the NBA back to Baylor, but that's a different conversation.
I covered the guy.
I mean, head coach
James Najee in Charlotte.
Everybody. How can you go from Charlotte to the Knicks to Waco, Texas to play for the Baylor Bears? Shame on you, coach. All right, I digress. Schuyler, some important portal updates. Again, I'm not. I think we could have Pat White and Steve Slayton and Owen Schmitt back in their prime, and if they hit the portal, nothing would surprise me. Nothing shakes me anymore at this point. But there's obviously a couple big known names that have entered the portal in the last week or so since we last recorded or did an episode here. So run us through a couple of the bigger names and what we know at this point before we get to our break.
Yeah, so obviously Cam Vaughn, that's the big one that I think caught everybody off guard, just because of the fact that he went on live stream, whatever app, I don't even know if it was Instagram or whatever, and said, I'm a Mountaineer. Well, I mean, a lot of things can happen, and there's several conversations that take place throughout the month, and it's not just at the exit interviews either. So, things happen. I think it's probably going to be something that ends up hopefully working out for both sides, but I think we're starting to realize, as talented as Cam is, or as talented as Jaheim is, a lot of these guys, they're not like irreplaceable. And I think that's because you have so many different options in the transfer portal. It's no knock to those guys. It's just you have thousands of guys in the portal that you can evaluate and try to bring in that can maybe even be just as good or maybe even better. So, yeah, losing Cam stings for now. Losing Jaheim stings for now. But you got to be smart about the money. I think that's first and foremost. You got to understand also the type of standard that you're trying to hold within the program too. So really, Cam, Jaheim, those are the two biggest ones. I think there's probably guys like upwards of 20 that are going to be entering the portal on January 2nd as of right now, and I would say most of that is just, with all due respect, just churning the bottom half of the roster out. You have to trim some of these numbers down as you get down to that roster limit. So really not a whole lot of surprises, not a whole lot of impact losses to this point, which I think is a good sign.
Manageable losses. It's just, we've reached an age when you find yourself as a program in transition with a new coach. The two teams with the most, as we speak, at least as we tape tonight, in the portal are Oklahoma State with 44 and Iowa State with 43. I think the number now for Iowa State on its roster, they have 16 football players on their roster. So, we had 81 new kids last year. A couple of these teams are going to say, hold my beer, West Virginia. They're going to have to get the full allotment. I mean, that's what you're looking at. That's the new reality of transitioning to a new coach. You are literally going to flip your roster. So when you look at West Virginia, some of the names, Wes, that hit since we last met and got together, obviously, Schuyler, you talked about Cam. Best wishes. Go be the best version of yourself somewhere else. The market's about to open. What works out best for everybody is going to work out best for everybody. That's what it's going to be. Izzy Boyce. Izzy Boyce is a guy who entered And I get it. And see, here's what makes the portal era so rough. Izzy Boyce was kind of a role player defensively, but he was also a heavy contributor on special teams, had the big block punt against Colorado, got us going, 250 plus snaps. And you know what? He could have stayed around and vied and battled to earn some more snaps defensively. But instead, he's going to test the market. Somebody in the open market of 130 plus teams, one way or the other, will throw something at him. Maybe that's not better than what he ended up with. There was a study recently done since 2021 about what percentage of each program's team, or each program, I should say, what percentage of their players leaving to go in the portal land at a lower level school, a G5, if you're a power conference school. I don't know if you guys saw this. And what percentage do you bring in? Well, I think West Virginia hovered around 70% for both those figures. One of them, we were an outlier. The other one weren't. But when you look at the blue bloods, the Georgias and the Alabamas, that's just going to be a much smaller figure because of the position they're in. They can kind of cherry pick the portal, and that's the nature in which they do that. But Donovan Haslam, another guy, he made some starts for us down the stretch. Donovan's far from a polished or finished product. You saw some flash, you saw some potential. He's a body mover, but he needs to drop a bunch of weight to become the best version of himself. And he's the kind of guy that, had he stuck it out, if he's playing for Rick Trickett, he's either not going to be around or he's going to be in the NFL. He's one of those guys because that's what Trickett would have whipped him into. But, he wants to test the waters and see if he can find a better fit elsewhere. Go do it. Marshawn Oxley, another guy that really hadn't settled in as the guy at the bandit spot, but showed some flash and had some moments down the stretch. And you were kind of curious, all right, what's another off season with Zach Alley look like with Marshawn Oxley? That could be intriguing, but we're not going to find out. So those are the types of guys. It's not always marquee guys. Sometimes I don't even want to call them glue guys. It's just role players that typically in the past they would have stuck around and you would have continued to develop them. And, in 1 or 2 years, not only are they a solid starter, but maybe something more, but this is the same thing that every team in America is now dealing with. We talked about the attrition at some of these schools that are losing their coach. That's what we were dealing with a year ago. At least that's not what we're dealing with this year. We're going to add 15 to 20, and if necessary, it could be a couple more, are the numbers that I would guess if I were to hazard to speculate in the portal. But again, remember, there's not 2 windows this year. This is it. If you're going to enter, this is it. This is your one opportunity to do so. That window opens January 2nd. And once you're in, you're in. Now, you can be signed by a school in May or June or July, but you can't enter in May. This is your only opportunity to enter the portal. Now, I would imagine there's still going to be some teams stitched of necessity down the line that are signing kids into the summer, but not to the extent that they did last year when there was a May portal window opening. Now it's going to be like the mad rush has already taken place. Everybody's done doing their buying, but you had somebody get nicked up in the spring. You had some injuries, some unforeseen things happen. And now from a position of desperation, you got a couple guys in your pocket that you might need to go out in May or June and sign. But new thing. Did you see what Tulsa's doing, guys?
Yeah.
You see what the University of Tulsa is doing?
The portal house.
They're locking their coaches into a house because this is literally speed dating for a handful of days. So why leave? Why go home from the facility? We're going to have you sleep there, eat there, stay there, conduct interviews there, and we're going to turn it into a TV show, the portal house. So I just can't imagine sitting there negotiating with a kid and his agent, on camera. I can't imagine the coaches signed up for that. I don't know. So that had to be somebody other than the coaches that agreed to that. But that's where we're at with the portal. The portal taketh, but it's also, trust me when I say this, about to giveth. And you're going to see that, and we'll be talking about it starting next week.
That we will, but before we get to a big portal heavy week next week, it's time to get to our first ever Gunnies, all right? You can't call them the first annual because you got to get to the second before it becomes an annual thing. So it's the inaugural Gunnies, our 2025 ITG Awards here when we return on the other side. Wes Uhler, Owen Schmitt, Jed Drenning, Schuyler Callihan, and you are in the gun.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
You're listening to Mountaineer Football Talk.
ITG.
When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low-rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnson Equipment, farming made easy.
Get all your Mountaineer gear in WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. They're the locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. Shop at their 2 locations at downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Pattison Drive, or online at bookexchangewv.com.
When shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter code INTHEGUN20 at checkout for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
Back in the gun here as it is time to put a bow on this season with an idea that could only be curated by our very own Jedger. Of course, Jed Drenning, Jedworth, Jedgar Allan Poe. He has come up with an idea. I actually really like it. The 2025 Gunny Awards. It's going to be an ITG new tradition here. This is the inaugural version. 6 categories of questions that Jed will run by us. We'll each give a thought on, and maybe award a winner, if you will. And then some of this stuff we actually crowdsourced on Twitter over the past week at... Oh, geez. I'm sorry, guys. I'm rusty. What is our Twitter account? It's In the Gun Podcast, right? Sorry. Yeah. It's been a little while since I've plugged the Twitter account. We're usually plugging the YouTube so often now. In the Gun Podcast. So 6 different categories. Jed, you are our Alex Trebek when it's Who Wants to Be a Mountaineer or whenever we do stuff like this. So I don't know, whoever your favorite host is, maybe you're like Steve Martin doing the Golden Globes or something good here, but let's get started in the first inaugural, Gunny Awards 2025 here.
Slipped up. He almost slipped up. Yeah, I'm partial to Michael Scott hosting the Dundies, right? So I think I'm going to be more Michael Scott like, whether I like it or not. But okay, first of all, you don't really have an award show after a 4-8 season. That's not necessarily what we're doing here. So don't think we're polishing things up that way. That's not what this is. It's just we want to reflect. We want to talk about some of the things that we can extract that are worth remembering, that maybe represented some form of hope moving forward. And then you kind of get the hang of it as it goes on. The first 2, we didn't farm out to Twitter and have the fans' input. The last 4 we did. So let's start with the 2 that the fans weren't involved with, okay? Category number 1. What was the brightest sign for the future that we saw in an otherwise tough 2025? Okay, you have 4 choices. Brightest sign for the future. So if you dig deep, what about this football team appealed to you that gave you some form of hope moving forward? Because even against the odds, despite the challenges, a couple things turned out okay. All right, which among them? Starting with A, was it life in the pass game down the stretch? Remember, Scotty Fox strung together a couple 300-yard efforts in the final 5 games. We had some punch in the pass game, some big plays against Arizona State. That's A. Was it B? The fact that West Virginia, despite its struggles against solid defenses, found a way to run for 246 yards to pave the way for a win on the road versus a tough Houston team that was ranked and had a formidable rushing defense. 246 yards was a big part of what we did at Houston against a salty rush defense. So you saw a pulse there in the run game despite the inconsistency and everything else that was playing out there throughout the season. Was it C? The fact that the West Virginia defense allowed just 3.6 yards per carry all year. That was number 3 in the Big 12 and the best by a West Virginia defense since 2020. And oh, by the way, the West Virginia defense also quietly led the Big 12 in stuffs, which is run stopped at the line of scrimmage and or for a tackle for loss. So WVU allowed just 3.6 yards per carry and had some moments at the line of scrimmage despite the other issues we encounter. And then finally, would you choose D? Despite all the issues we had, the fact that West Virginia still ended up finishing the season at +2 in turnover margin. We talked in the offseason about what a strength of riches that's been. When he's successful, in large measure, it's been because of turnover margin. At West Virginia, what was he, +60-some? His first run at WVU. At Jack State, the last 3 years, +16, 17. So West Virginia, despite its 4-8 finish, despite the issues that we had, +2 in turnover margin for the season. So what would you guys say? Okay, life in the pass game down the stretch. We ran the ball at points like against Houston. The defense, 3.6 yards per carry allowed, or we finished +2 in turnover margin. What do you say? Let's go around the horn. Owen, I'm going to go to you first.
I think it was the +2 in turnover margin. That gave us our best efforts all year we just didn't capitalize, unfortunately. But I think that, and what were we all together this season? What did we have together this season, Jed? Total.
You mean it was +2, but you want me to check and see how many giveaways and how many takeaways?
I'm just thinking because I know that at the beginning of the season we were talking about Neal's era and how that turnover margin was like 12. We had like 12 takeaways, or something like that.
16 was the most. Yeah. We had. I see what you're saying. Let's go here, and I agree, Owen. That's the way I was going to lean. Not to give away my answer, but that's the way I was going to lean because I look at it like this, guys. If you're +2 and the roster's not quite where you want it to be yet, that means the ideas, the schemes, the concepts are leaning into that type of thing. So there's some potential there that once it's populated with the right guys or the right returning guys that know the scheme better, whatever combination you're looking at. So in the conference, guys, Big 12 turnover margin for the year, West Virginia was let's see here. West Virginia total gained. Yeah, we forced 20. And the most Neal had in 6 years was 16, which is what caught up to Neal more than anything. We weren't turning the ball over a lot with Neal. It's just we couldn't force turnovers, and that caught up to him. So the fact that we were so opportunistic defensively, so West Virginia turned it over 20. Now, Rich doesn't want to turn it over 18 times, but we did. But we ended up +2. Schuyler, what do you got?
I think I like Owen where he's going, and I think you can make a case for the others as well because, like you said, Jed, it's not a perfect product yet, and you could see that once you get the guys that are more capable in that room, that maybe would give you more results. But I'm actually going to go with the guy that is definitely going to be here, at least knock on wood for now, and that's Scotty Fox. 2 300-yard performances, a win over a ranked team on the road as a true freshman in that offense, behind that offensive line. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know that he's going to be your starting quarterback in 26. I like his chances, but, I mean, to me, that was the most impressive thing because if Scotty Fox doesn't come alive in the back half of that season, things could have got way, way, way uglier than they already were.
Wes, we forget. We talk about the win and we talk about the performances that mattered. Obviously, Houston, obviously, Colorado. But his coming out party was in that tough loss to TCU where we first showed life when we were heavy underdogs. He's demonstrated the ability to win big games and win big games on the road, irrespective of what his future might look like. You like having a guy like that in the room, certainly at least in the mix. I don't want to say if he's a front runner or not. We'll see. But Wes, what do you think Out of the four, which one are you leaning towards?
I liked Owen's answer. I think the defense allowing just 3.6 yards per carry is very encouraging as well because they did it with a different cast of characters. And they're going to have to do that again this season with a defense that's going to be almost entirely turned over. But much like Schuyler, I'm going to go off the board too. My brightest sign for the future that we saw in 2025, gentlemen, is the recruiting class that we put together for 2026. One of the highest ranked in program history, the highest we've seen in years, coming off, let's face it, the worst 7-year stretch that WVU football has had in half a century. To be able to get 3-4 stars. Kevin Brown, and this is Rivals rankings here, but Kevin Brown, second at his position in the country. Matt Sig, 16th at his position in the country. Amari Latimer, 19th at his position in his country. So one guy who's in the top 5, another 2 who are in the top 20. For what we saw them having to put a roster together patchwork, it was always going to kind of be like, trying to shop for Christmas on Christmas Eve, right? But this gives me some encouragement that when they have time to prepare, they can get results in the recruiting game, which I'm hopeful will translate to same church, different pew in the transfer portal. Guys, having coaching and being able to evaluate the Owen Schmitt walk-ons of the world and the Pat Whites who were committed to a big school to play defensive back, but we're going to let them play quarterback here. That stuff's all important. But so is signing 4 stars and high-level 3 stars and talented dudes. As much as you need to coach guys up, as much as you need to find the diamonds in the rough, you also need to find some dogs. You also need to find some all-staters and some studs. And I think they started to do that this year on the back of a really tough season in year number 1. And that gives me a lot of hope going forward on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal. I know it's a whole new world in that regard. But that's a big part of this thing still is talent evaluation and talent procurement. And I think in their first real cycle to step up to the plate in that regard, I think they hit a home run.
I'm very intrigued to see what Rick Trickett's going to be doing with those young freshmen, especially the ones that get on campus early. And Matt Sieg,
hold on, real quick. Let me make sure I mention too, and I know Schuyler will appreciate this. Owen as well, the Pancake King himself. All right, Camden Goforth, who's continues to rise up these rankings and is going to be an absolute dog, and I think is a fan of the podcast as well. So I want to make sure to
early.
On campus early.
Next week. He sent me a message. He's like, "Hey, it's about to be on." I said, "Hell yeah, brother!" I'm pumped for him, dude. I think.
Me too.
Oh, speaking of that, real quick, I'll give it to you before I give it to anybody else. I talked to him today, actually. This is his thoughts on Coach Trickett. Coaching legend. I can see the excitement in the fans just getting him back in Morgantown, just listening to him and hearing players describe him. I know I'm going to get the best coaching on technique and consistency I can get. He's going to push us and get the best out of us. I'm excited to meet him and get started. So there you go.
That's future NFL Hall of Famer Camden Goforth.
That'll be the 126th NFL Hall of Famer that Rick Trickett, for those scoring at home. I'm making numbers up, but it feels like it. Okay, and Matt Sieg, I was going to mention Matt Sieg, a finalist for a National Player of the Year, National High School Player of the Year honor.
Pretty good.
Not to mention Amari Latimer being Mr. Georgia as well.
That's right, Mr. Georgia. Very correct. So absolutely correct, Schuyler. So,
and don't forget, Kevin Brown burned a couch on the McAfee show. Okay, just don't let that be forgotten either.
Yeah, that's a tough bar to match right there. That really is. But Wes, I like that you went way off the board. You took the recruiting class and the portal class to be, which contributes to what Owen and I were saying. If you can go +2 when it's so rough around the edges, by the seat of your pants. The way that we had to do it in year 1, just imagine what that's going to look like when you start inserting some of those 49 new cats in there and they start understanding and going about their business. So the winner is with multiple votes. The fact that WVU's defense finished +2 in turnover margin. Owen and I both took it. So that is the brightest sign for the future that we saw in 2025. Again, you like to think, if it looks like +2 with so many limitations on your football team, when those limitations are addressed over the course of 1 off season, 2 off seasons, is that going to get back to the business of looking like +60 some like Rich did in his 7-year run in the mid-2000s? We hope that's the case. Moving on to category number 2. All right. the top moment. Don't even necessarily confuse this with the top game. All right, it's a different thing. Wes, you've talked about the fact that football is all about moments, right? And you're absolutely right. That's what fans clamor for. And most of the time, those moments come in wins, but not always. The Quincy moment wasn't in a win, and it won an ESPY. Okay, but let's look at the top moments of 2025. We have four candidates. We're going to start with one that I know we talked about ad nauseum after it happened, because I remember when it happened in real time, I had the biggest in the world ready to come out of my mouth. And that was in the backyard brawl. We were coming from right to left from our sidelines. We were backed up and pinned deep in our territory in the first half. And the snap on the punt very much appeared to be sailing out of the end zone. But our friend from down under, Ollie Straw, said, "Oh, no, you don't," and made a leap for the ages to snag it with one hand and get off the punt.
Where do you think you're going, mate?
How has no one made a T-shirt about that? Like no
Where do you
silhouette
think
with all
you're going, mate?
The silhouette. Hey, I'm telling you, that's going to be in the ITG shop when we get it running. Yeah, that's a good idea, Scott.
Do you think when Ollie reached out and grabbed that, he went, crikey?
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry, Ollie. I'm sorry.
Snap on the bobby. Okay. So that's number one. All right. Because that was a moment. I mean, that game teetered back and forth, and all it took was a play like that working against you instead of for you. And it might get to the point that you don't recover and make that run. And who knows what that could have done to the flow of that football game. So that's number one. And it's in the backyard brawl, so it's big. Okay. Number two, the Jordan Scruggs 80-yard pick six on the road in the win over ranked Houston.
It's a good one.
That came in the third quarter, made it 31-21. Guys, it was getting scary. Houston was trying to figure some things out offensively. Connor Wigman was getting it going. They were moving up and down the field. He was developing a little bit of rhythm, a little bit of flow. And the next thing you know, what I remember about that is from our sidelines, the throw was made opposite side toward the Houston sidelines. So at first, coming out of the break, I thought, hey, that looks interesting. And all of a sudden, Scruggs pounced on that thing, and it didn't look what you recognized from our vantage point. As soon as he picked it, he was scoring. That's the one thing you could easily tell. So you guys remember that one? That's B, choice B. What a pivotal pick six that was. Huge splash play by the West Virginia defense. Let's go to C. We're looking for moments. This was a big one. West Virginia's 87-yard drive in the final 2.5 minutes to tie the Pitt game, setting the table for us to ultimately win the backyard brawl in overtime on September 13th. So the moment for C is the 87-yard drive in the final 2.5 minutes to tie the backyard brawl. Not the overtime moments. Those were big too, obviously, to finish it all. But against all odds, driving down the field, making the plays, and tying the game. You think of Nico, you think of the tight end room, Grayson Barnes. I mean, that's really the first meaningful time we mentioned his name. So that's C. And finally, we're going to close it out with D. The Sincere Bowers 90-yard catch and run in Tempe that gave West Virginia an improbable 23-22 come from behind lead over Arizona State with 6:37 to go. If you remember, made it 23-22. We went for two and it failed. Now, again, if you're thinking, how do you have a moment in a losing effort? That's kind of counterintuitive. But again, think back to Quincy. Moments are moments. Big plays are big plays. It's not on Sincere Bowers that we lost that football game. He made a play when we so desperately needed it. I remember thinking, man, we're down 22-17. We are so far against the sticks. We're about to punt it away, and they're going to get the ball in the plus territory. And we've been on the field too much defensively. Oh, this is going to get tough. This is going to get tough. And the next thing you know, he's bobbing and he's weaving and he's just, again, that was the throw from perspective standpoint. The throw was made. Scotty made the throw to the opposite sidelines toward the Arizona State sidelines from our right to our left, that we were moving the football in the fourth quarter. And when Sincere made the first guy miss, I thought, oh, okay, we're out of the hole. We got better territory to punt from here. And then when he made that DB from the backside go sliding, you're like, this can't be happening. He was running back toward our bench as he did all this. So you can just imagine the elation and the joy and the screaming and is this actually happening? And sure enough, just as he ran out of gas across the goal line, he went. It was a huge, huge moment. So despite the fact we didn't close the deal and we lost the game, I had to include that. So synthesizing this down to the four, Ollie's catch, Jordan Scruggs pick six, the 87-yard drive to tie Pitt in the final 2.5, or the sincere Bowers 90-yard catch and run. Well, I started to do it that one last time. Wes, this time I'll start with you.
All good moments, Jed. I mean, of those ones, the 87-yard drive against those stinking Pitt Panthers stands out. I would also like a couple moments in that Colorado game that deserve a shout out. Juju getting his hair pulled by Oxley, that became a viral moment across social media. Also, Steve Slate.
He shows up with his hair tucked under his helmet for the next game.
Yeah, I bet you. That's exactly right.
He did. Yeah.
He did. You're right. He did. That's right. I bet you if he comes back to Morgantown again in a couple of years, if he's still with that program, he might do the same. Steve also getting honored for his Hall of Fame induction that day. Super Steve Slayton, long overdue, going into the College Football Hall of Fame. I could easily argue that my top moment of 2025 is the embrace that Owen and I had in the Peach Lot after the backyard brawl, where I think we were both crying, and Owen cracked about half dozen of my ribs. We were so happy. But I'm gonna go a little pedantic on you, Jed. I'm gonna go a little detail oriented. But for me, it's specifically when Eli Holstein threw that football into the 20th row to the popcorn vendor at Mountaineer Field. That's the exact top moment for me. And the elation. The elation of our entire group and our box, our whole season ticket group that includes my cousin Jared and his family, our good friends TJ and Liz, our buddy Adam Crowley was with us in the box for that one too. The pure just pandemonium of the instant moment in the country roads and the jumping up and downs and the hugs and the high fives and I think I was kissing everybody on the forehead, on the cheek. I was so happy. That's my top moment of 2025 is when that Eli Holstein pass sailed and the few minutes of blackout pandemonium joy that followed.
I like it. It's, again, you went off the board, and that's worthy of going off the board for. Hard to forget that moment as well. Again, from our right to our left, right over our heads. We broke that down on the podcast. I don't know if you guys saw it this week. You probably did. But with Pitt losing to East Carolina in the bowl game, there were several ECU X accounts that were really having some fun with it. I think we can go ahead and officially call, was it ECU Pride? He's now officially a friend of the program, right?
We need to have him on.
You're welcome anytime, ECU Pride. But that moment was a big one. So I can't fault you for going off the grid with that. Schuyler, what do you got?
I mean, I think all those moments were definitely worthy of consideration. I mean, like you said, the Scruggs one probably gets the least amount of attention just because they had the lead at the time, where the Pitt game, it was a crazy comeback. Arizona State was a crazy comeback. I mean, what was it, 3rd and 20 or 3rd and 22? Something crazy was
3rd and 20, even worse than that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those things, you're just like, oh my gosh, how does that even happen? I'll say this before I get my answer. The two off the board things, even though he's not going to be here anymore, I love Donovan Haslam just picking up.
That's a good one.
Whoever it was, a Dior Hubbard, and just dragging him across the first down line. I know it was a flag, but I love the determination, the fight, because it hadn't been showing. And so I like that. I also like the fact that it's over. So there's that as well. But no, I'm going to be right there with Wes. Look, I think the way that game kind of played out was as best as you could have scripted as a Mountaineer fan. And I think we all talked about this that week, is I think most West Virginia fans would take that win in that fashion rather than a 30-7 win, because you want that little extra kick to the nads. You know what I'm saying? Where you think Pitt has you, or Pitt thinks they have you, against the ropes, and all of a sudden you come out of nowhere, start swinging, you lay the last punch. And I also say too, I always give my wife hell because ever since we met, it was 2019, which is also marks the start of this downfall with West Virginia sports. She happens to also be, though, undefeated when in attendance for Backyard Brawls. So there you have it. Backyard Brawl was a winner for me.
I love it.
Which one you taking with a brawl? We got multiple choices.
Oh, the comeback, the fourth quarter comeback.
Drive.
Yeah, the drive.
Okay. So we put you down for that. All right. So we put you down there. Owen, we have Ollie's leaping catch, Jordan Scruggs' pick six to help beat a ranked team on the road, the long drive against Pitt, or the sincere Bowers catch and run to give us the lead late at Arizona State. What say you?
I won't be too long-winded here, but I'll agree with my counterparts here. It was such an emotional game. I think for me as well, just with how our season ended, 20 some years ago. Just to see Coach Rod after the game, give him a hug on the field. I mean, I ran on the field like I was a player or something.
Yeah, you
know what I mean?
Top moment of 2025. Reed Carrico being like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
I know,
I was interviewed Owen.
And no, it was just, I mean, the whole game. You could argue the Ollie play is just as important as the fourth quarter drive. Just because, like what you said, Jed, that would have been a monumental bonehead just play, and not really anything on him either. But that we always take for granted the operation, right? And he made an excellent grab. I would definitely have to say it was the drive for sure is the play, but after the last play when it was officially over, I don't think I never really got that my senior year, and that was kind of like a it will never replace it, but the circumstance of Coach coming back, there was a lot of emotion. Like Wes said, we sat in the parking lot, dude, and just hammed it out for a while, man, like two little kids on Christmas.
Nobody wanted to leave.
No, did not. I was definitely on cloud nine, and it was a special moment.
Honorable mention. Can I just throw this in there too?
Well, I need to ask Owen. Owen, you're going with Pitt.
I'm going
with.
Yeah, I'm going with the drive.
The drive. Okay.
Yeah, move aside, John Elway. There's a new drive.
Yep.
Big Daddy and his crew putting together the reverse video up for the Colorado truck.
That's a great call. Great call.
That was great. Yes. Hey, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go on record and say that was a big board moment for the season in college football, not just for West Virginia football.
Yeah.
I defy you to find a more clever, more perfectly suited, more so quickly thrown together big board feature than that.
And wait, real quick, one last top moment of 2025 that we got to mention is every game. Well, the stroke. Yeah, good call, Schuyler.
Yep.
The start of the stroke tradition that'll hopefully be one that continues for a while. And at least for me personally, every home game getting a hype speech by our very own Big O right before kickoff. That was a welcome treat every single week.
Which I was usually missing
through the
that's
screen.
right when we're coming out. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Yep.
Okay, let's wrap this up by saying this. Second category, when we have the same conversation next year, which will be the second annual Gunny Awards, right? Next year at this time.
Next year, it's annual.
We're going to be having conversations about, okay, which big win are we picking and which moment within that big win, right? That's
right.
The way this is supposed to go, right? We're not going to be talking about a 4-8 team and really
we may have to wait till
for a 4-8 team.
We have to wait till
we
have to wait till a week or two into January next year.
And now you're talking.
Maybe. I like the way you're thinking. That man takes a frying pan fishing. Okay. So I like that confidence, Schuyler. All right. So here's where we are. The sincere Bowers moment in person. That was so electrifying. But I'm going to have to defer. If we'd have closed the deal, I got to be honest with you. Yes, I know Quincy won an SB and we lost. I might pick that if we won that game. I really might. If we'd have finished that game and won the game against a really good Arizona State team, I might have picked that play, but there's just enough with this competition in this category. Ollie's catch, yes, football is a game of give and take, or cause and effect, I should say. Every play impacts the next play. Every situation impacts the next situation. So who knows what type of game we might have been looking at. If we might have got blown out, it might have got away from us. Who knows? But for Ollie making that play, but again, big, but I'm not going there. Jordan Scruggs, the reason I might lean into it, it is such a huge monumental building block for the health of your program to be able to do something you hadn't done in 7 years, and that is go on the road and beat a ranked football team. And the fact that we could do that and have that to salvage from an otherwise struggling season meant so much. But guys, I agree. It's only trumped by the outcome of the Pitt game. Beating Pitt to me matters more than any of these other things. So that's why I even mentioned the Ollie play in the context that I did. And Wes, you're right. There was a certain sense of finality and closure, official closure to the Eli throwing it away moment. Absolutely. And I would argue that I was more unrestrained in my elation at that moment for sure, because it was over. Everybody's screaming, everybody's running out there to do the handshake, and now we got to rub it in. But I'm going to say this. I'm going to go with the drive, because when that drive ended, I revisited a feeling I hadn't had in 20 years, and I can tell you the last time I had it. The last time I had that drive is when we went to overtime against Louisville. I mean, we went to overtime against Louisville in 2005. I just sat back and told my buddy, enjoy it. We're going to win this football game. I don't care if it's 10 overtimes. We've got them where we want them. They're not going to stop us, and they're eventually going to blink. They're not going to stop us. They're running on an empty tank. Yep. So however many overtimes it takes, we are going to score and score and score, and eventually they won't. And it took 3 overtimes, but eventually they didn't, and we did. We could have played 10 overtimes, Owen, you agree? And we just scored in 10 overtimes. They weren't going to stop us at that point. It kind of had that same vibe. When we scored with everything working against us, with an 87-yard drive to crush their soul the way we did, at that point, I honestly felt, look, I know it's overtime, and I hate to call it a formality, but it's kind of a formality. We're about to whip your ass. Yeah, you know it. We know it. Everybody in this building knows it. You don't want to admit it. You think you can dig your way out of this hole that we've now put you in. But everybody in this building is now convinced this game's over, and we just get to sit back and enjoy watching it unfold. And that's what happened, which is why I have to go with the drive instead of the final play. So that makes the drive the winner. So that's the winner. We now have 2 winners. 4 categories to go. These were the ones we polled the Twitter audience on. I'll get your guys' thoughts, and I'll tell you what the audience said. Here we go. Category number 3. This is kind of an outside-the-box approach to it. Which 2024 senior could have benefited us the most in 2025? Could it have been quarterback Garrett Green? Remember, his last 2 years, 1,500 yards, rushing, 19 touchdowns, dynamic playmaker. Could it have been Wyatt Milam? You know, played 6 or 7 games so far this year for a good Jags team, guard, some tackle. They even had him play some, attached tight end. Obviously, dominant force on the offensive line, which we were lacking this year. Or Cole Taylor. You know, every quarterback needs a security blanket, which it feels like we lacked this year. And if Cole Taylor was anything, he was a security blanket for this football team in 2024. The quarterbacks, whether it was Nico, whether it was Garrett, always knew he was going to be there in a critical moment. So who do you think of the 2024 team could have helped us most in 2025 had they had another year? Garrett, Wyatt, or Cole? Owen, which do you say?
I'm gonna say GG.
I say GG.
Yeah, I think he would have been electric with what Rich could have dialed up for him, and with that type of leadership. I mean, him just having the years of experience. I mean, that's who I'm going for.
He was definitely about the right things. And you know, from the outside looking in, I heard some people, well, he was a showboat. He was this and he was that. Look, outside of the moment that lapsed in the Houston loss, okay, and the bee getting in his helmet, I always told him, I said, you should have said there was a bee in your helmet. That's why you took it off. You know, and maybe that excuse would have worked and you wouldn't have got penalized. But Garrett was a kid who was about the right things. So that's hard to dispute. Schuyler, what say you? Garrett, Wyatt, or Cole?
Uh, I agree with O because I think GG would have been phenomenal in this offense. The only concern I would have had been he did have some moments where he was banged up the last couple of years, and with the way the quarterback situation was, I think more than anything, this team just needed some steady presence up front. So I'll be a little different, and I'll go with Wyatt.
It's hard to argue that. It's hard to argue that. Wes, what say you? Garrett, Wyatt, or Cole?
Yeah, I'm torn on this one, and I like how you said 2024 senior too, Jed, because I had to reread that twice earlier because I was thinking about just saying, "Hey, how about Jaheim White?" And a healthy RB1 would have gone a long way for this team this year. I'm torn on this one too because Garrett Green, the experience, what felt like would have been a nice mesh with Rich Rodriguez's offense, would have been so big. Some stability at the quarterback position where we started four different quarterbacks this year, three or four different quarterbacks throughout the year. But man, Wyatt Milam's tough to have that anchor as a left tackle is tough to pass up, especially when this offensive line was so. I mean, I was going to say up and down, but there weren't many ups. If we're being honest, it was mostly just
I mean,
struggles.
he's an All-American.
Yeah, I think I got to go with Wyatt Milam. It's tough to pass up on the quarterback because stability at quarterback would be so huge, but so much of Rich's offense starts with the run game, and there was just so infrequently consistency there with the offensive line. So I think I'll just go with Wyatt ever so slightly, but either one would have been a very welcome development.
Good call. Good call by everybody. I'm going to weigh in and I'll say, look, Wyatt is man. If you had a couple Wyatt Milams, there's not a lot of things you couldn't do in a short yardage situation, right? And obviously they don't grow on trees, so to have an opportunity to have another one would have been special. Have him back for another year, but when I look at Garrett, I consider this: we were fundamentally an offense, and I've said this many times, the ecosystem on this offense was not healthy. Uh, it was not a healthy ecosystem. I don't know. Obviously, inserting a dominant left tackle doesn't suddenly make you more healthy than you otherwise were, but you would still have some of the same shortcomings. Uh, I mean, the pressure packages simply would have been coming from the other side. That's what would have happened, but it could have given you some flexibility and some latitude up front. But if you're looking for an X factor in an offense that's kind of unpredictable when you don't know what to expect from it, and so many things are going to have to be off script, I want a guy who is electrifying when he is off script. And you know what? If I go with Garrett and he gives me 7 or 8 games, that's 7 or 8 games of production that I didn't have this year, you know? So I'm going to lean toward Garrett, and it's not just being a homer because he's a quarterback. Because man, I'm telling you, if it's Zach Frazier, I might go Zach. If it was Zach, but Zach was 2 years ago because he's the center.
Yeah,
I think that's a different thing you're talking about now, and now he can impact the entire interior offensive line. But I'm going to go with Garrett, which means we have a tie to a piece, which is perfect because our voters can now be the tiebreaker. The voters went 5% for Cole Taylor. Come on, give Cole some love. 1 out of 20. 39% went to Wyatt. 56% went with Garrett. So the tiebreaker is the voters. The winner is Garrett Green.
Picking up a trophy, he's not even here.
Without an offensive line, you're going to struggle as a quarterback. But you saw our quarterback struggle this year anyway. I'd like to see a guy who, when he does struggle behind an offensive line, has a shot to escape and slip around and make some fun stuff happen. But no wrong answer there. I can make a pretty compelling case, I think, for Cole Taylor just to make those quarterbacks all feel a little better. But anyway, moving on. Next category. Which player from the 2025 team will we miss the most? This is pretty straightforward. Again, I chose seniors here, outgoing seniors. Who will we miss the most? 3 choices. Punter, Ollie Straw, DB, or jack of all trades, Fred Perry, or wide receiver, Jeff Weimer. When you make an argument for each, look at Ollie Straw. just Mr. Consistency. He's not going to rank toward the top of the charts or the leadership boards in the Big 12 in yards per punt or any of these metrics outside of inside the 20. He was always consistent there. This year he had 16. He penned inside the 20. He was a 4-year starter. He was just a model of consistency. Fred Perry led the team in tackles, 6.5 a game, led the team in TFLs, forced a couple fumbles. When he was hurt for, parts of different games or ejected for parts of different games, we were a different defense. He was the intimidating force that we had on that defensive side of the football. And Jeff Weimer, when Jeff Weimer, we talked about the splash in the pass game late in the season that Scotty Fox had. Well, a lot of that was the production of Jeff Weimer when he came alive and got comfortable within the system. He had 21 catches on the year, but the final 5 games came 17 of those 21. Both of his touchdowns came down the stretch. So, again, you can make an argument for any of the 3. Wes, I'll start back with you. Ollie, Fred, or Jeff Weimer. Who will we miss the most?
Listen, I might not to critique our own, MC here, but I might have had Reed Carrico and Big Eddie V mentioned in this here too. But this is, I think, a pretty straightforward one. It's got to be Fred Perry. It seemed like he made a splash play every game, either in the pass game and the run game, forcing turnovers, getting sacks, TFLs. There's certainly a couple guys on that defense that you would like to have back in 2026, but I think he's top of the list.
Oh, back to Sky. Ollie, Fred Perry, Jeff Weimer.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think you can make a case for Jeff. I like the fact that you mentioned Reed. I'd also even throw in Chase Wilson, who I thought was just about as good as you could have asked for. Was he an all-league type player? No, but for a defense that just needed somebody, I thought he stepped up and played well. But yeah, I got to go with Fred. He's just a difference maker, a game changer. That's going to be a hard position to replace this offseason.
Yeah.
It is. Leads me to Big O. Ollie, Fred, or Jeff Weimer?
I'm going to say Fred from just a playmaker perspective. It just seemed like he was always there. He was he was the dinger. He always made his presence known. You could always tell, like on the TV copy, who was making the hit, because he always brought the wood, which I love. I will say, as a Mountaineer, I definitely would, honorable mention would go to Ollie, just because of his passion for the university, his commitment to the university, 4-year commitment, which is unheard of in today's game. Whether or not he's a punter in a kicking, group, or, not. Just a guy who stuck it out with us. I thought he's done, from a university that's had a lot of really good punters.
It's true.
It's kind of hard to, I'm not saying he was, it's a huge mix up of guys, but he definitely carried the torch with the guys that we've had in the past. But I would definitely give him a shout out on the honorable mention. But Fred's the hit stick for me.
So impressed we're bringing another Australian in. It'll be our third,
Yep. Yeah.
We got another Aussie punter on the way. But so all 3 of you going with Fred Perry. Guys, I'm going to, not that it matters now because I'm outvoted, but and for that matter, our voters on X agreed with you. 63% of the votes went to Fred Perry. We talked about the numbers he posted, but it was beyond the numbers with Fred. It was just the intimidation factor, the missile factor. His greatest strength was sometimes his greatest enemy. He was just so aggressive. Sometimes he was over aggressive, and you'd rather have to pull him back than have to say sick him. And that was the case with Fred. Ollie came in with the voters at number 2, 25%. So the respect is there. Jeff Weimer only got 12%. And guys, I'm going to go with Jeff Weimer. And here's why I'm going to say that. Jeff Weimer is the kind of old school, workman-like blue-collar receiver at a position that's just so populated by so many prima donnas at every level. Jeff Weimer is the kind of guy who absolutely, no doubt in my mind, I watched him when he was struggling through the court system to get his eligibility. Every practice I was at, nobody was grinding on their own like Jeff Weimer by himself. Nobody was. And that's just who he is. He would do this if you weren't paid a penny to do it. That's what he's all about. leaves nothing on the field, tenacious blocker, which is something that's sometimes more difficult to get these kids to do than you might think. So I'm going to go ahead and throw some love to Jeff Weimer. But yeah, you guys outvoted me, and so did the Twitter poll. So Fred Perry wins the category. So everybody was well represented there. Moving on to our final two, kind of from a projection standpoint, and we're flying the plane, we're still building it, living in the
I was
house,
going to
we're
say
still
this is
painting
pretty
it,
difficult
you
here,
know.
Jed. These last two.
The roster is far from complete, but you're starting to get a sense of enough to make an educated guess at this. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball. Which defensive position group will improve the most in 2026? Which will we see the most improvement from? Which group? Will it be A, D line and edge rushers, B, linebackers, C, DBs, secondary? So look at it like this. Choice A, D line. Yeah, they had some production. We talked about the 3-point yards per carry allow. We talked about, the stuffs, and they had their moments. We were more often than not stout against the run. Of course, there were times people ran on us. That's the nature of what this team was. But we had what looms for me. We had the 4 straight games we needed them most without a sack. I mean, that drought hit at the worst possible time on the schedule against those teams that, oh boy, you needed some negative yardage plays, right? And we just didn't come up with any. The linebackers, guys, I think on some level they overachieved, but at the same time, this is Zach Alley's first time as a defensive play caller that a linebacker didn't lead his defense in tackles. So for all the things that Reed Carrico did, Chase Wilson did, normally his linebackers are fed and fed well, and they respond by getting to the football, making plays, making stops, and racking up a bunch of tackles. That didn't happen. Our backing guys led the team in tackles. So was that a product of missed tackles? Was that a product of the way the play unfolded? Whatever the case might have been. But then the defensive backs, I mean, you could individually make a case for a couple of these guys having some really solid performances throughout the course of the year. But when you look at the big arc of it, we were dead last in the Big 12 against the pass, giving up 265 a game. And the secondary had collectively 80 plus missed tackles on the back end. So which are we going to go with? D-line and edge, linebackers, or DBs? Okay, whose turn is it to start first? Is it Owen or Wes? Oh, Schuyler, let's go with you first. Schuyler,
Go Sky.
who do you think? Which group will improve the most in 2026?
It's tough because, like you said, I mean, we don't really know at this point what it's going to look like. But I'm torn back and forth between the D line just because that's the group that, as of right now, the most about. That's going to have the most returning bodies back. But I'm going to go with the secondary because I think there's a clear intention to get bigger, to get longer. And we've already seen that with the early signing period and the JUCO guys that they got. So I'm gonna go with the secondary just because of that simple factor. I thought the guys that they had this year played well. They just got overmatched when they had some big guys on them, like you talked about. The guy from BYU, a couple of others down the stretch as well. So, I mean, especially that Texas Tech game. I mean, some of their receivers made our linebackers look, our corners, our linebackers, everybody on that defense just look extremely small. But, so yeah, I'm going to go secondary.
Secondary, great point on your part, Schuyler. Put you down for the DBs in the secondary. But as we populate the roster, as we look in the portal, the mindset of this staff, now that they have some sense of cycling through the Big 12 circuit, look, it's not a very high bar to improve your roster when you were 4-8 and you got blown out how many times, right? That's a pretty low bar. And that's not where the staff is setting the bar. The staff is setting the bar when they want to bring in, for instance, a receiver. They want to bring in a receiver and say, all right, can this guy beat the DBs at Arizona State? If they bring in an O-lineman, they're going to say, all right, can this guy overwhelm or handle his business against the best of the front seven of Texas Tech? That's the way they're approaching this. They're not trying to build a roster to just be better than last year's roster. They're trying to build a roster to compete and win a Big 12 championship. So that's kind of what we're leaning into as we head toward the portal next week. Let's see, Wes, I'll go to you next. Which position group, DL edge, linebackers, DBs, who will improve the most your educated guess for 2026.
Yeah, I like Schuyler's thought process there. I think I'm going to lean towards linebackers, though, for one reason and one reason alone. And Jed, you kind of hinted to it because that's Zach Alley's specialty. And year two of Zach Alley and what we know now with a plane that's still being built and is going to have almost an entirely new cast. I'm going to give a little doff of the cap to Zach Alley and what he'll be able to do with those linebackers.
Love the call. Owen, what say you? D-line edge, linebackers, or DBs?
Well, in my opinion, I'd like to see our D line and edge improve, just for the sheer fact that that's the wall, right? That's the tip of the spear, and hopefully we can manage to make that happen this offseason. I mean, we lose some significant, obviously our team's in shambles right now. We lost 42 some players, so as a whole, it's a lot of shoes to fill. But I personally would like to see, just from a run, stop, pass, rush aspect, we got to get better.
Like it. I'm not so sure I'd use a shambles. Last year, yes. This year, there might have been some orchestrations, some of the departures,
just a lot of graduates too this year, man.
Yeah,
a lot of
that's
graduates.
What I mean.
Yeah, we had a senior heavy class. Yeah.
I'm saying more senior heavy.
No, I
class.
got what you mean. I got what you mean. Yeah, when you have 40 seniors, yeah, you're going to be scrambling to fill some holes. So, and to Schuyler's point, if you're looking, no position is fortified. But from a returning snaps log standpoint, the D line on the defensive side is going to be carrying that torch, right? You're going to have more battle tested guys there. So if you can populate it with some twitch, out of the portal, some talent out of the portal, and some of these young guys stepping up, I could see that. So we have a 3-way tie so far. If you listen to the way, and I'll weigh in here and we'll give a final evaluation, the way that the Twitter poll went out, we had some competition here. The Twitter poll, 20% went to the D line to improve most, 38% went to the secondary, 42% went to the backers. So it was kind of tight. I'm going to agree with Wes, and I'm going to go with backers. I think we're going to try and bring in more speed at the second level. And I think we're going to get it. We're going to find it and target the appropriate guys in the portal. And I think we're going to have an appropriate mix of what we have coming back. We do have a couple battle-tested guys that we populate in that room as well. Whether you look at Ashton Woods or Ben Cutter, I mean, we're going to have some guys coming back, Ben Bogle. So potentially, I'll also tell you that January 3rd they're coming back, right? Or January 15th they're coming back when the portal closes. But theoretically, you're going to have a couple guys in the mix there. But I also think we're going to bring some talent in and some athleticism and speed. And I'm going to go out on a very short limb and tell you that, again, having this conversation this time next year or later, we'll be talking about the leading tackler for West Virginia, in fact, being a linebacker, just as it's intended to be in a Zach Valley defense. So, Wes, you and I voted for the backers. So did the poll. So they win the category. Closing out with this.
This should be the quickest one, by the way. This should be very easy.
On the offensive side of the football, which position group will improve the most? So this is the offensive version, except there's 4 choices instead of 3. Which will improve the most in 2026? Quarterbacks, running backs, O-line, or the wide receivers, tight ends. Now, a little snippet about each as you think about it. And Owen, I'm going to start with you, but here we go. Quarterbacks, as a group, hit 59% of their passes collectively, 10 touchdowns against 11 picks, 18 turnover-worthy plays. These are the numbers you might anticipate for a team that was forced to play 3, 4, 5 guys behind an offensive line with limitations. Running backs, 7 different guys ran the football from the running back spot, if you include Curtis Jones. But as a group, and this was an issue for us all year, we talked about it. We were getting production in the run game. Rarely was it enough from the running back room. The running backs only gave us 88 rushing yards per game as a unit. That has to be doubled next year, okay? And only gave us 3.9 yards per carry as a unit. So obviously that's to improve there. O-line, where do I start? Worst, Big 12 run grade per PFF in the conference. We give up 31 sacks. You know the issues. Wide receivers, tight ends. We only had 12 plays at 30-plus yards. Not explosive enough. That was the fewest in the Big 12. Jax, for frame of reference, was second in Conference USA. Rich's last year with 21. So he's a big play, splash play in the pass game kind of guy. When he throws the football, it leads to a lot of big plays when the running game's clicking. But so, Owen, what say you? Quarterbacks, running backs, OL, wide receivers. Now, I should say I polled Twitter before the announcement was made of the
Probably
hire.
be even more overwhelming now.
I don't know that it would have mattered much, but Owen, who you got?
As far as improvement made, correct? That's what we're going with, right?
26.
Yeah.
Who do you think will improve the most? What group we're projecting here?
Yeah, I think O-line will, just because and here's what I'm saying. Not only will they, but they have to, right? They have to. If we want to be successful as an offensive unit, they have to get better. I think we got the guy that will make that happen. I think what helps us is a ton as well too is we have one portal window. Okay, we don't have the springtime BS where the house gets cleaned out again. You know what I mean? So I think that's going to be in our favor as well. I think some of these young cats coming in, that are coming in early too, to start getting into, start eating, start getting in the weight room, start getting familiar with the program in general as a whole. I think that's where we're going to make our biggest improvement this year. You know what? I'll eat a chili dog if I'm not correct next year.
With you. Wes,
I'll eat a chili dog if you are correct. I think it's easily offensive line. I would have said this before the hire of Rick Trickett, but especially now. They just struggle. Like, I'm not trying to throw dirt on any of those guys. They were Mountaineers. They hopped on a moving train. They did everything they could in a less than ideal circumstance. But that was not even close to up to varsity performance from the offensive line next year. Again, we all know that's where it starts in a Rich Rod offense. You have to be able to command the line of scrimmage. You got to be able to run the football. Direct reason why Rick Trickett was brought in. Obvious reason why this was the most lopsided by far vote from our listeners of all four that we put out there. I think all these groups will improve, and all these groups, make no mistake about it, have to improve, and we need to, knock on wood, get a little bit better luck in the health department there, certainly too, but it's offensive line.
Yeah, I'm same thing with you, and mainly because the way I look at this is the offensive line has the most room to improve. I mean,
exactly.
That's just it right there. And then the fact that you bring in Rick Trickett on top of it's even better. But I will say this about the receiving core. Don't sleep on that group, because I think that could be a very, very, very close second. If Jaden Bray's able to come back, I don't know. But I love the two junior college kids they got, Kedrick Triplett and Keon Hutchins. Those two kids can fly. That's a whole lot of speed that you didn't see out there this year. So close second for the wide receivers.
Call there. Give you the poll numbers, and then I'll weigh in to close it out. Less than 2% went with wide receivers, DBs. Less than 4% went with running backs. 11% went with QBs. And again, pre-Rick Trickett hire, 84% went with O-line. Here's what I'll say about it, guys. You can make an argument that each group, as it improves, can improve other groups derivatively. Like if a quarterback is making the right decisions, executing things properly, he makes life easier for his offensive line. He makes life easier for his running backs. He's more on target with his receivers, his singling coverage. Everything's working. If the running backs are more decisive and never missing a read, all of a sudden you can make an average O lineman look special because you're never missing a read. And he's always hitting that window. If the receivers are making plays when they shouldn't, they're attracting more coverage. It softens up the box. It helps the O line. But no position group in this discussion can, to such a degree, impact all the other position groups if it experiences the improvement that it should, as the O line does. If the O line improves to the degree we hope, we expect, and it should, think of all the things that happen as a result of that improvement. Life is immediately made easier for your run game, for your backs, for your quarterbacks, which makes life easier for your receivers, which can in turn do their job and punish defenses, which offer up single coverage. And the next thing you know, Rich's offense is working like Rich's offense is supposed to work. So I also think it's the offensive line, and I felt this way before Coach Trickett was hired. That was just the triple exclamation point that was added to it. Now we understand that they're not just going to be technically sound; they're going to be technically elite. There's few guys in the country that do it the way Rick Trickett does it. And if this O-line improves like we hope they do with the fresh faces, and I don't know, we'll see a couple guys in the mix that were part of last year. We will, no doubt about it. But you're going to see a lot of new faces in the portal. You have these young dudes, these pups that are coming in. Some of them, I think, might start day ones. Others are going to push for time very quickly. But, yeah, it's going to be a reinvented offensive line on a lot of levels. And I think that can not just change the overall look of your offense, but of your football team, because then your offense can dictate the terms of the flow of the game, improve your defense, transition units start to play differently. Everything happens, it falls into place. So the final category goes to the most improvement expected or anticipated is among the offensive line. And guys, that has been the 2025 Gundy Awards.
Love it. Love it. Gunny, not Gundy. Okay, that's the fired.
Thank you for the correction.
Fired Oklahoma State Cowboys head coach.
Rattlesnake on
paying off.
This was fun though. Hopefully this becomes a new tradition, and like Jed mentioned, hopefully we're giving out some bigger awards for a team that's winning more than 4 football games. But you got to start somewhere, and 2025 in the books, and obviously we will be talking about building that plane. Plenty of portal and more recruiting conversation coming for you here in the following weeks. But that'll do it for us for this edition of ITG. For the producer, co-host, Mr. Do-It-All, Schuyler Callihan, the signal caller and Gunny host, Jed Drenning, and of course the barbecue and sharp-dressed beer truck, Big Owen Schmitt. I am Wes Uhler. Thanks for listening to this edition of ITG. Have a happy, safe, happy, healthy New Year, everybody. And as always, the one thing we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. You've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.